Oh, the fun job. I said you get the fun job.
Yes, I'm doing the live streaming. Fun job. Yeah, this is fun too, when it works.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys are doing fantastic today. We're live from Cowtown. So we have 189 people on the live stream. My expectation is that's going to be increasingly insane, the amount of people going to get on the live stream. So for those people who are watching online, the program starts at 7. So we should be good at this point. We're just putting everything together and watching the crowd growing. So thank you very much for tuning in. Share the live stream to as much people as you can. And thank you very much for tuning in. I just lowered the volume just a little bit here because I don't want my video to be copy strike, of course. So I have to keep the sound at the very minimum and see what happens then. say something?
Let's go, Alberta!
Let's go, Alberta. Right on. Some CPC people wanted to connect to my soundboard, and I told them, no, you need to send an invoice. I need to send an invoice if you want to get to my soundboard. Funny. That's how you deal with those people. So for those people who kind of missed the gap here, there was this lady from CBC who came to me and said, "Hey, can I connect to this mixer to capture the audio from my mixer?" And I said, "Yes, but you need to pay it." And she was like, "Well, yes, because I'm working. It's my equipment. So yes, if you want the sound, you need to pay for that line, of course. So I need to send an invoice somewhere." She was like, okay." No, kind of funny.
Well, I have YouTube. We're on WhatsApp. Like you just ask.
Go Freedom. Go and search for Freedom Calendar on YouTube.
Freedom Calendar.
Yeah, it's like a calendar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So go to YouTube. Freedom Calendar.
You're doing good.
Thank you.
Oh yeah. Next.
And that's
Yeah.
like
Yeah. So search for Freedom Calendar. Oh, right there. So you see on LiveStream that subscribe and
right here.
yeah, so share that.
Okay. Yeah, I will. Yeah, I will. So hang on here.
Just press it
Yep. Oh, right here. Yeah. Perfect.
and so and that's
Yep. Oh, that's awesome.
yeah.
That's great. I'll share this out as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, what's happening is that I have the live stream set up. We're right in the camera right now,
Okay.
and there's another tab there that will be a switch on the live start.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah,
Thanks again.
yeah. And share that to people.
I'm gonna do that right now.
Awesome. People in Mexico watch your live stream. Awesome.
Grab that one.
Oh, fantastic. Later. Go first. So it turns out I have some people watching from Mexico today. Isn't that cool? From freaking Mexico. Hey, look at this. Marty up north right here. Look at this. We can take a picture right now. You're right on the spot. You're
There you go. I'm live. Hey, folks. Thanks for coming out.
there. It was Marty up north. So what I've heard is that this show will be emceed by Unacceptable French. So that will be fantastic and good to see. We currently have 439 viewers online. Is keep it going, keep it going, keep it going, keep it going, keep it going. Amen. Watching from Panama. So what are you guys watching? I just want to see on the chats where you guys are watching from. We got people from the south, got people from Edmonton, we got people from Calgary watching online. Hey, we got people from Panama watching the live stream. Yeah, I just put it on the chats. On the chat, some people say, "Hey, I'm watching from Panama." Hey,
Oh, you know what? Okay.
oh, okay, I need to get that guy. Hey, I just want to see these posters. This post down there.
That guy with the banner?
Yeah. I want to show you something, guys. I want to show you something really cool. Oh, look at this. Look at this. I want to show you something there. There we go. There we go. See it? That's cool, eh? Trudeau. Fantastic. Thanks for coming.
got a buddy in Mexico.
gonna go up and give the church some marks. So.
So the show is about to start very, 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 very soon. Sorry for my facial expressions and being a little aggressive on the camera a little bit. Turns out the one of the cameras just died on me, so I have to switch to an alternate camera in a rush, and the show starts in 2 3 minutes. So hope you. So it's not the same camera I'm using most of the time, but that should do the trick for now. And I sincerely thank you for your patience and for your time and dedication. And the show will start soon. So we have 1,200 people watching online, which is fantastic. The show will start soon.
The country we knew has slipped far away, and gone is our trust for believing.
Our leaders divide us, our culture erase the laws, now a weapon they're wielding. Our resource they hate, our taxes they waste, and criminals always they're shielding. It's time we must leave, a choice that's not small, but goodbye elites in Ottawa. There's fire in our souls and dreams in our hearts, Alberta set free. A fresh start, our homes are our castles, our children are crowned, so here's where we'll all stand our ground.
Where taxes are low and freedom is found, the world will be Alberta bound.
It's time we must leave, a choice that's not small, but goodbye elites in Ottawa. There's fire in our souls and dreams in our hearts, Alberta set free. A fresh start. Oh, Canada, you're failing. There's no cure for all that's ailing.
Crime is rising, drugs are flowing, government jobs is all that's growing.
Your fiscal ship's quickly sinking down. Elbows up, circus of clowns. They censor free speech and call the truth hate. Spin news to serve our deep state.
Mass immigration leads to decline. Net zero shelf where no sun will shine.
We're landlocked, still no pipeline seen. With foreign oil shipped here by sea. They're holding us over a barrel indeed, but just watch when Alberta's unleashed. It's time we must leave, a choice that's not small, but goodbye elites in Ottawa. There's fire in our souls and dreams in our hearts, Alberta set free. A fresh start.
Hello, Calgary! Let's give you all a huge round of applause for being here tonight. Look at this turnout. My gosh, this is incredible. We are here this evening to celebrate the Stay Free Alberta petition and getting everything organized and ready to go for a referendum to an Alberta strong and free. Woo! My name is Nicole, and I'm here tonight to welcome our MC up to the stage. But before I bring him up here, I'm just going to take care of a couple housekeeping items. I'm going to let you know that the exits, emergency exits, are on the side walls over here. We do have a hearing impaired interpreter up on stage with us this evening because we have a handful of people in the corner. Let's give them a huge round of applause. There are also washrooms. There's washrooms over here on this side as well as in the back. So if you do need to use them, feel free. I'd like to also send out a huge welcome to our vendors in the back. Please make sure you go and see them. We have some Stay Free Alberta lawn signs. Those are available in the back for $20 cash. If you would like one of those, please go grab them. We have many for you. So that's one of the things I wanted to let you know. I would also like to say a huge round of applause for our volunteers. They are incredible. Without our volunteers, we wouldn't have this amazing venue and the amazing outcome. They are downstairs signing petitions this evening. The doors will close at 10 o'clock. If you get down there and you are in line, we will take you until we're done with the last one. So if you have not signed and you would like to, please go downstairs and visit our volunteers that are down there. The other thing I wanted to let you know is we do have donations, and we will be passing around the buckets while we are doing our event. So it'll be going on throughout the event because there are a lot of you here. So if you'd like to donate, $50 or less can go into the buckets. That's only $50 or less. If you'd like to make a donation higher than $50, you'll see our volunteers over on the side and go see them. All right. Those are all of my list items that I wanted to chat with you about, but I want to get you guys excited. So I am going to, on the count of 3, I would like for you guys to give me a let's go. So 1, 2, 3, let's go! And with that, I will introduce our MC this evening, Derek from Unacceptable Fringe. Please welcome him to the stage with a big round of applause. Derek.
Hey, Alberta. Who's ready? For independence. I love it. Before we get started tonight, folks, before I continue on with this show, I just want to take a minute to acknowledge and thank Nicole. Stay free, Alberta. Without the hard work from Nicole and all of our volunteers, all of our canvassers, everybody at this event, you wouldn't be sitting in this chair tonight. The strenuous work that they go through, the tireless efforts they're putting forward. Nicole, thank you for everything tonight. We owe an unpayable debt to Dr. Modry, to Jeff Rath, and to Mitch Sylvester for the work that they've done. And I know that debt is unpayable because, believe me, folks, I've seen Jeff Rath's rates and you can't afford them. I want to talk for a moment before I bring on our guests about why I'm here tonight. The same reasons I think many of you are. When I was in my teens, my father moved us to this province from Manitoba, and I sat in a moving truck with him and said, "Why are we going to Alberta? Why did you make me uproot my life to go to Alberta, of all places?" He said to me, "Alberta is a province of opportunity. It's a province where you can make anything out of yourself as long as you're willing to work hard, get your hands dirty, and put in a good 9 to 5. That opportunity has fled this province. A couple of decades of bad policies, corrupt government, and abuse from the east. Many politicians have said that this country's broken. Right now, Mark Carney is making deals with China. He's burning this country to the ground. But from the ashes, this province, like a phoenix, is going to rise to the greatest republic that's ever existed in a prosperous nation for every man, woman, and child who lives within its borders. The opportunity my father spoke of will return because of everyone sitting out here, everyone who has gone and lined up across this province, everyone exercising their democratic right for a free and fair Alberta. I can tell you right now, I have never been more proud of this province than I have been watching all of you standing in those lines, signing up for freedom. Now, you have to forgive me because there's a little bit of a technical glitch when it comes to my guests. So I'm going to bring out my first guest this evening. Before we do, actually, Poll Everywhere is going to be up on your screen there, folks. If you guys want to get a shot of that QR code, we're going to be asking your input on several questions tonight. There'll be about a 30-second window per poll, so make sure to get your phones out. Keep in mind, with the steel buildings, there may be issues with reception, so bear with us, folks. We're doing everything we can. As that first question's popping up on the screen, I just want to remind everybody that this is a grassroots-driven event with Stay Free Alberta. Donations to help fund this campaign can be made over at the table on the side over here, only to a limit of $50. Anybody wanting to contribute more than $50, ask at the table. They will arrange for who you need to speak with in order to do that. Now we'll bring up our first question of the evening. Coming into this event, how do you feel about an independent Alberta? One word, click and submit. As you can see, everything's popping up on the screen real time. I'm seeing words like cheerful, inspired, hopeful, optimistic, freedom, excited, overdue, encouraging, exhilarating, empowered. This is the path Albertans are choosing to take tonight, folks, and it's one that's unstoppable. The country wants to pretend that we don't have the right to do this. They keep saying, you can't leave. You can't vote your way out of this. The last time I checked, folks, we weren't asking their permission. Next on the screen, vote for one topic of greatest interest to you within an independent Alberta. Canada Pension Plan transfer to an Alberta pension plan, RCMP funding, military and policing, finance, taxes, currency considerations, swap and credit lines, Alberta's sovereign Indigenous people in an independent Alberta, oil pipelines, sustainability in the environment, or immigration and deportation plan. Please cast your votes now with the QR code. I can only guess where this is going. Well, look at that line for immigration. Who knew?
Thanks for tuning in, guys. They're doing like a poll inside.
Up on the screen, folks, you're going to see a number of slides talking about the importance of an Alberta. If you haven't seen these slides yet, make sure to go over to stayfreealberta.com. You can always check out their resources. Again, a wonderful, wonderful plethora of resources up there. I'm going to now invite my first speaker, Mr. Jim Sinclair, up onto the stage. Jim Sinclair is a retired PPCLI corporal. He's a reservist with 33 years service, served in the Princess Patricia Canadian Light Infantry. He served with the Canadian Airborne Regiment 2 Commando, the Canadian Para Company, and the Royal Regina Rifles. He served in Croatia, Bosnia, and Afghanistan with 33 years experience. Jim will speak on the values that this country was formed upon. Give him a big round of applause to thank him for his service.
You're already making it hard on me. I get pretty emotional when I see what this Canada, what this group of people are actually trying to do. That was amazing. I appreciate the applause. 33 years ago when I joined the Army, if you would have asked me then if I'd be standing in front of a bunch of amazing people like you are, I wouldn't have believed I'd be here. And I really feel everybody in this room 33 years ago probably didn't ever think our country would be in the situation it's in right now. So as a young man, when I joined the Army, it came to a point where I realized what my job was going to do. I had to do some soul searching to find a motive, a reason that I could take another person's life. And I was going to quit the Army and just find another thing to do on the farm, like my mom wanted me to do. But I found my reason to put my life on the line and actually take other lives by the men and the women that were beside me. And that was why I stayed and made a career out of it, and I'd do it all over again. So the values, thank you. So the values that I learned as a young man in a community that was full of veterans from World War II, they stick with me to this day. And there's a picture I think it's behind me or wherever it is. There was a picture that was on the screen that showed me on top of a burning school in Afghanistan where they executed the girls that were going to that school. We were in a position where we were going to be overrun, and I was fighting with the American Army at the time. And anyways, I didn't have a picture of me. If we were to get killed, they put it on the news. So I quickly took my helmet off, put on my beret. I was part of the Regina Rifles then, fighting with the Patricias. But like I said, we're attached to the Americans, and I asked the Americans to take a quick picture of me in case that was going to be my last day. And I wanted it to show the people of Canada that I was determined to be there, and I was dying because I believed in this nation. And unfortunately, that's not what's going on here right now. And the values that our soldiers went and fought for in World War I and World War II, they're not represented in our country anymore. I was also involved in an incident where in Croatia, I was involved in a mine incident where my sergeant was wounded. Another man was killed instantly, and there was another engineer sergeant in that minefield. And when you enter a minefield, there's a process you're supposed to go through, and you find the mines, make a trail, and evacuate people safely. Well, the minefield started on fire, so that option was right out the window. And like I'm standing up here now looking at all of you people, I was standing on top of a vehicle that was blowing up in the incident as well. And I was looking across this field, this really tall, high grass, and the death and destruction in front of me. And I was looking for my boss because I knew that guy was dead. And I saw my Army partner stand up, and he was through this tall grass. And the only way to get to him before everybody burnt alive in the fire was to run through this minefield and pull out what I loved at that time was that man, to get him out of there. And I ran into another guy while I was there. So it turned into a situation, but that's basically what's going on now is that we love a part of this country. We're running into a minefield that's on fire, and you don't know how you're going to do it, but through teamwork, you're going to get through this, and we're going to pull this off. And thank you. You're going to hear lots of talk today about currency and money, and the most important currency that we all have is the blood that courses through our veins. And that's the number one currency of a country. And that country, this country of Canada, the men that spilled that blood, the most valuable currency that we all have, that paid for this nation and paid for our values and our morals that we should be living by. They're not there, and I hope to see that in a new free in Alberta. Anyways, I'm honored to be here. I won't take up any more of your time. I thank you very much, and I love you guys, and God bless.
How's everybody feeling so far? All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's keep this show rolling. Let's bring out our next guest of the evening, our next speaker for you tonight. I'm just waiting for them to update the slide here. Miss Eva Chipia. Focused on safeguarding property rights in the context of major energy developments and advocating for civil liberties and legal challenges against the government. A significant highlight of her civil liberties advocacy was the rare opportunity to cross-examine Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, during a live broadcast that garnered global attention. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Eva Chipia.
Good evening, Calgary. Right now, there's a lot of excitement about the prospect of an independence referendum in Alberta, and rightly so. It's truly inspiring to see Albertans paying attention, asking serious questions, and preparing to directly exercise their democratic voices, lawfully, peacefully, and powerfully. Citizen engagement at this scale is not something to fear. It's something to respect and protect. I remember back in the 1990s when I was a young girl, hearing about the talk about the Quebec referendum. I didn't really understand what it meant. In my child's mind, I imagined that if Quebec voted yes, it would somehow float away and become its own little island. I guess the other side of the room is getting the audio later. What strikes me today is not that a child once misunderstood a constitutional question, but that decades later, many adults still do. Because even now, there are people who speak as though Alberta voting on its future would result in chaos and disorder overnight. That is simply not the case. That is why I am here today, to inspire confidence in the process and to address directly and without apology those who deliberately sow fear while disparaging fellow citizens. A healthy democracy does not mock civic engagement. It depends on it, and it thrives because of it. So let us set aside the noise, speculation, and deliberate nonsense, and focus on one simple question. What does the day after a successful referendum actually look like? Yes. Cheering is encouraged. In the morning when we, the citizens of the beautiful and resilient province of Alberta, wake up to the news that Albertans have exercised their right to self-determination and voted to become a truly free and independent nation, life continues much as it did the day before. Let that settle the alarmists and the fearmongers. Legally speaking, the Constitution will not disappear. The laws of Canada will remain in force. Courts will continue to function, contracts remain binding, schools and hospitals remain open, businesses will continue to power the life of the province, life will go on. What does change is something far more powerful and unprecedented in Alberta history. The great people of Alberta will have spoken clearly and lawfully, and that injects something into the system that cannot be ignored: honesty. And don't we need a good dose of that? A clear democratic mandate from the people strips away pretense and political games. It forces public institutions and office holders to confront what Albertans actually want, rather than what's most convenient for them. Elected officials, federally, provincially, and including Indigenous leadership, are no longer free to dismiss, delay, and deflect. They are constitutionally required to listen, and more than that, they are required to act. When the people speak clearly, the obligations of those in power changes. That is democracy functioning exactly as designed. That is what the day after looks like. This referendum is not a tantrum. It is not rebellion, and it's not a negotiating tactic. And it certainly is not treason. A referendum is one of the simplest and most direct expressions of the democratic will of the people. Even the Supreme Court of Canada has been clear on this point, and this cannot be ignored. Albertans are law-abiding people. We do not rush change, but when change becomes necessary, we meet it responsibly. And we all know why this moment has arrived. We see it in our daily lives, in rising costs, declining services, and growing distrust in institutions meant to serve the public. The reason Albertans are demanding better government is simple. The system is no longer delivering what it promised. This referendum will not solve every problem overnight, but it will do something essential. It will force honesty into the system and return responsibility where it belongs, with the people. Self-determination is not radical. Democratic participation is not dangerous. Asking a question is not treason. An informed and engaged citizenry is not a threat to democracy. It is proof that democracy is still alive. Alberta's future will not be built by fear, but by those willing to meet it head-on with clarity, integrity, and resolve. This moment demands confidence. The people have a will, the people have a voice, and when that will and voice is heard, it must be respected. And that's why we're here today, because hope deserves a response. We are here today answering that call, standing up for a system where citizens are not afraid to challenge the government. We are here defending open debate without censorship. We are here protecting a society that encourages disagreement rather than punishing it, insisting on leadership that respects citizens instead of disparaging them, and calling for a government that is transparent about how public money is spent. Yeah. And most of all, We're here because we believe in a place where the basics of a good life are now not out of reach, where streets are safe, where groceries are affordable, where families can get ahead, where our youth can build a future. Where hard work is rewarded and not eroded by policies made far away. Public trust cannot be demanded, it must be earned. A free society does not tell its people to sit down, stay quiet, and do as you're told. A free society listens. So if you're tired of being dismissed, of being told to comply without question, tired of being silenced, this is your moment. I am inviting all of you to make your voices heard, clearly, confidently, and so that Ottawa hears it once and for all.
Eva Chipia. Oh, hang on. Which one's on? Oh, here we go. Eva Chipia, ladies and gentlemen. Now for the man of the hour. The man who's going to get us to an independent republic. Mitch Sylvester speaks on the missed justices of the federal government, current events, and our plan for our current referendum petition. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome Mitch Sylvester to the stage.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. No, I don't need the mic. Good. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much. I've never taken a selfie, but I'm going to take a picture with all of you right now. Thank you. Let's talk politics. How many of you is the first political meeting? Hands up. Oh, there's a lot of veterans in the room. Do you agree that the province of Alberta shall cease to be a part of Canada to become an independent state? Now, I want to clarify that, just in case there's a question out there. That question is directly out of the Clarity Act. The word state does not mean 51st state. So just understand, we spent a month in court on the last question. So this one we took exactly out of the Clarity Act. It's in the Canadian Constitution. So that is what it is. It means that we will become an independent country on our own. So just to be clear, I get asked that every night, and away we go. I'll get my clicker out of my pocket here. Okay, we desire, and every Canadian desires, that the great trade of the prairies shall go to enrich our people in the East, to build up factories in the workshops of Eastern Canada, and contribute in every way to its prosperity. So how about this? We desire, every Albertan desires, that the great trade of Alberta shall go to enrich our own people, our kids, our grandkids, to build up factories and the workshops of Alberta and contribute in every way to our prosperity. We're in a business arrangement. This is what the people in the East think about us. Screw the West, we'll take the rest. That has been the way it has been for 120 years. We want to know what's going on. If you were in a business arrangement with a group of people that didn't respect you, and continue to abuse you, would you stay in that business arrangement? Confederation is working exactly the way it's designed to work. Understand this. Western Canada has a population of 11.7 million people. We have 24 senators. Atlantic Canada has a population of 2.4 million and has 30 senators. But it gets worse. Alberta has a population of 4.4 million people, and we have 6 senators. We have twice as many people as Atlantic Canada, and they have 30 senators. How could we possibly get a decision go our way? And it's no different than the other side of the House. This is how the country's broken up. 42 seats in BC, 14 and 14 makes 28. That's 70. Add 34 Alberta seats. That doesn't even add up to what Ontario has. Supreme Court justices, 2 for all of Western Canada, 3 for Ontario, 3 for Quebec, 1 for the Maritimes. And equalization payments, how does that work? Well, I'll tell you how it works. Quebec doesn't put Hydro-Quebec in their balance sheet. So Alberta puts our oil patch in their balance sheet, and Quebec becomes a have-not province as a consequence of that, and we end up paying them a whole bunch of money. And $13.3 billion, and it's year after year. But here's a slide that I really want you to pay attention to. Those numbers are equalization payments per taxpayer. Look at the number in New Brunswick, $6,500 per taxpayer. In PEI, $6,100 per taxpayer. So I want you to understand something. They are buying votes with our money. That's exactly what they're doing. We give $47 billion a year to Ottawa, every single year. $40,000 per Alberta household. Canada pension, let's go there. So the first thing I want you to understand is you will not lose your pension. You will remain a Canadian citizen in a free and independent Alberta. The second thing I want you to see is who's paying the bill. Look at that big red line at the bottom left. That's what Alberta pays. BC pays $8.9 billion. Everybody else is a net taker. So understand this. Alberta seniors collect $6 billion a year. Our taxpayers pay $9 billion a year to the CPP. We have a $3 billion a year overage. That $3 billion, according to the CPP Act, is supposed to go into a fund for Alberta seniors. And that's since the 60s. And that's a rule that Ontario put in because it didn't want to pay more than its share. So what happened? We, according to the CPP Act, could call back our overcontribution plus interest anytime the Premier chooses to do that. So I'm asked the question, why hasn't she done it? That number that Ottawa owes us today is $400 billion. Now I want you to unpack that a little bit. Just understand this. CPP is claiming to get 9.5%, so we'll round it off 10% interest. So just the interest on that money is $40 billion a year, plus a $9 billion contribution. Our seniors collect $6. We would get a $43 billion net on that. We could afford to give our seniors a 6-fold increase in pay and not touch a principal. This is one of the town halls that I hosted with the Premier, and she said something that I remember, and it was the way she said it. It was more the way she said it than anything else. When I became Premier, I thought I would fix everything in 6 or 7 months, but everything is broken. At her level, that means everything's too corrupt to fix. Look what Mr. Carney's given us. All the major projects Ottawa's announced. You see any in Alberta? Absolutely not. But the RCMP are aware of 4,000 organized crime groups operating within Canada. 4,000 organized crime groups. It's because we have no racketeering and no money laundering laws here. And look at the crime has risen in Canada in the past 10 years. Look at the bottom 3. Human trafficking, extortion, child pornography. That's all organized crime type stuff. Let's look at what the Liberals have done to us in the last 10 years, just in case you're feeling bad about this. Understand that Alberta is one of the richest pieces of real estate in the world, if not the richest. We would easily be one of the richest countries in the world right off the bat. We have trillions of dollars in resources. And what we have, more importantly, is a group of people that understand how to work, understand how to produce. We're producers, we're business people, and what we fervently wish is for Ottawa to get the heck out of and stay in their lane and get out of our road so we can make Alberta as prosperous as we could be. Now, here's what I consider to be the major problem of why we cannot negotiate with Ottawa. I was asked several times today, even, I did a couple CBC interviews. I said, what do you think of an independent Alberta within Canada? Yeah, they're talking to me now. An independent Alberta within Canada. Well, I said, it's not possible. And they said, why is that? I says, because you can't negotiate with criminals. So when plunder becomes a way of life for a group of men in a society over the course of time, they create for themselves a legal system that authorizes it and a moral code that glorifies it. An audit of $187 billion worth of Liberal infrastructure spending finds 20,000 missing projects. Now let's unpack that for a minute. Just understand what that means. What that means is those projects were paid for, but they don't exist. Right? They paid for 20,000 projects out of a $187 billion budget, but those projects were never built. Mr. Gilbo siphoned $254 million into his account. ArriveCan. Let's talk about ArriveCan. What did they do? They went to court, they lost, so the judge sealed it for 75 years. Mr. Trudeau, $400 million green fund, 250 scandal, where he didn't account for the money. $250 million spent on a vaccine factory that never built a vaccine. So we're already talking about $1 billion worth of theft here that we could see very clearly. And I just want to ask everybody in the room a question. Did we elect kings? How many people in the room think that the Liberal government is stealing from us? Hands up. So that's the problem. We understand that it's happening. We know they're doing it. They know we know we're doing it. But then what are we going to do about it? So they sealed that for 75 years. So I'm going to ask you another question. Do you think they would do that if it was you that stole a whole bunch of money? Mr. Trudeau spent $11,000 million on overseas gender programs. $11,000 million. I want to ask you, how many of you think that there wasn't any money laundering that went on there? So let's just play this game. So you go to a foreign government and you'd say, you know what, I'm going to give you $1 billion for a gender program. Would you give me 900 million back? What do you think the odds are that would happen? I'm not sure that happened. I'm not going to pretend that I know that happened, but I think it did. And the one thing I want you to know about that is once that money leaves the country, how can they trace it? Foreign interference is the greatest strategic threat facing Canada's national security, says CSIS.
I think the biggest security threat to Canada is China. We're heartened by the leadership of President Xi Jinping and the speed with which our relationship has progressed in recent months. And I believe the progress that we have made in the partnership sets us up well for the new world order.
All right, election integrity. Mr. Carney absolutely said that he agreed that we had the foreign interference problem. But Mr. Trudeau found 11 federal candidates that China reportedly aided in our election. So does that mean that we have free and fair elections? And why didn't Mr. Trudeau have a look at it? He said he couldn't find anybody. I found one for him, Mary Ng. See that look on her face? She's being asked right now what happened to the $130 million that her ministry had to create startups and jobs. And she didn't know where it went. And she never went to jail. How is it possible that we can make a deal with these people when they're absolutely criminal and everybody knows it, including them. And this is where this all started. In 2015, Mr. Trudeau said, there's no core identity, no mainstream in Canada, and consequently, that makes us the first post-national state. New World Order. That started in 2015. They've been planning that ever since. There is nothing accidental about the path we're on. Not one thing accidental about the path we're on. Here's the ring that controls all the rings. In 1954, there was a statute in the Criminal Code of Canada that said it was illegal for the media to lie to the public. However, in 2019, yeah, that's funny, right? But it never used to be that way. However, in 2019, Bill C-39 was voted on and passed in Parliament to remove it. So they can lie to you. So our government passed a bill that made it legal for them to lie to you. Step one. Step two, Mr. Trudeau said, the very concept of a nation founded by European settlers is offensive to me. He's offended by us. Old stock white Canadians are an unpleasant relic and quite frankly replaceable. And we will replace them. So let's just be very clear here. I'm not mad at the immigrants. They came here for what they thought we had growing up. I can't be angry with them. That is not their problem. The problem here is uncontrolled immigration. And what did he do? Look at the graph. In 2015, when Mr. Harper was in power, 15 million immigrants have come into Canada since 2015. We have a population of 44 million. 15 million new people since then. It's like having to put build an Edmonton, the infrastructure of an Edmonton every year to keep up to that. It's absolutely not sustainable. 1.94 million temporary resident applications this year. And I'm going to ask you a question really about national security. If we're allowing 2 million immigrants into the country every year, would it be unreasonable to think that maybe 200,000 of them could be foreign soldiers? I'm just asking you. Would that be unreasonable to think that? So why would our government do that to us? Peter Sutherland, who used to work for the UN, he said this: we must use migration to turn the English people into a minority in England. This will allow us to undermine the identity of the native English and import a new majority that will end the very idea of England. This is critical for globalism to take a hold of England. Ladies and gentlemen, that is what's happening here. Very clearly. And if you think it's an accident, the UN has a paper called Replacement Migration. There it is. Canada, step 3 now. Immigration, control the media. Step 3, Canada has 33 taxes, the highest in the world. Hollow out the middle class. They're doing it on purpose, without a question. Here they are. Carbon tax, personal income tax, corporate income tax, GST, excise taxes on fuel, alcohol, tobacco, cannabis, air traveler security tax, luxury tax, provincial territorial tax, capital gains tax, land transfer tax, media tax, regulation tax, CPP tax, and business tax. It's exhausting just saying it. Can you imagine paying it? And we are. We pay it all the time. Step 4, inflation. Do you know that if we print double the money supply, it halves the value of the money? Right? So understand that your money, if you had $100,000 in the bank, and then they double the money supply, 5 years later, they double the money supplies, that money would only buy half of what it bought on day one. And they understand that. They totally understand that. And not only that, they borrow all that money, we're paying $1 billion a week in interest on it. And what would you do if you're in business? If you borrowed money, you would want to pay it back. But what do? They sabotage our oil field. By far, the biggest industry in the country. So how are you supposed to pay that debt back if they carbon cap you? Eliminate jobs, eliminate business opportunity, and they're doing it on purpose. They don't like us. Energy to West Coast, you say we're landlocked. We're not landlocked, we're policy locked. They bring tankers full of oil down the St. Lawrence every day. But yet we can't put a tanker on the West Coast. We could change that in the free and independent Alberta. We could change those rules. And the carbon tax. The carbon tax has cost Canadians billions over 5 years, hurting the economy while reducing CO2 emissions by 11.9 gigatons. China emits 11.9 gigatons every day and a half. So we're shutting our entire oil industry down based on this lie. Because I want to ask you a question, even if it was legit. We sell them coal. We sell them coal. The coal comes right from here. Leaves the point of Vancouver and goes straight to China. And that CO2, unless I'm mistaken, doesn't just sit over China. It would blow all over the place. So what's happening is the government is using this to do all of the other stuff. The globalists would like to keep our industries in the ground where they can see them in a nice, safe place, because this is a nice, safe country. But they don't want you to benefit from them. They want to benefit from them. None of the biggest CO2 producing nations in the world pay carbon tax, just us. Carbon tax revenue, there you go. Do you see the big countries in there? Do you see the USSR? Do you see the USA? Do you see China? Do you see Pakistan? Do you see India on that? No. And Danielle just signed this MOU with them, and Carney's celebrating a 6-fold increase in carbon tax. I'll ask you a question, and that was supposed to be a win. How can increasing carbon tax by 6-fold help the people of Alberta? It's going to cost us $6 to $10 a barrel more to produce our oil. It'll make us non-competitive. And to top that off, they built Pathways. You know what Pathways is? That's all part of this MOU. Pathways is a carbon-sucking machine that will take CO2 and turn it into liquid and inject it into the ground, and then it's poisonous. It might increase oil flow, but if we haven't got a carbon problem, why should Alberta taxpayers spend $50 billion on Pathways, in addition to everything else they're doing? So they're putting us out of work, they're creating more money, making life harder for all of you, and they're doing it on purpose. Carbon tax was ruled illegal in Alberta, but the aforementioned Supreme Court held it up. Went right to the top. We won. They said, no, you can't do that. And here's where the rubber meets the road. Norway, which started after us, they produce 2.1 million barrels of oil a day. Alberta produces 4.6 million barrels of oil a day. They have a $1.95 trillion US oil fund, and we're $100 billion in debt. How does that work? Do you actually think that if we were negotiating our own deals, building our own pipelines, because we could negotiate with BC, you know, because BC sends 70% or 80% of its trade from those ports right through Alberta. We could tariff them day one. And then they would have to play nice. Now just imagine the difference it would make in our lives if we had a $2 trillion US oil fund that comes to about $340,000 US per citizen. Now all of our trade goes south. People say you're landlocked. Well, we're already landlocked. And 88% of our trade goes south. And not only do they attack our oil patch, they attack our farms. In the next emergency, they said that they will be able to come to your farm and seize your land and your herd. And that's a law, C-293. And what just happened to the ostriches? Those are dead ostriches in that picture over there. They seized that herd. COVID was a mess. COVID is what got me involved in politics. Never was involved with politics before. So actually, our government put out a paper, Alberta's COVID-19 pandemic response, and I'm just asking you, to this day, the leading cause of death in Alberta for the last several years was unknown causes. I'm going to share with you that there is no such thing as unknown causes. And we got this study done, but it never went anywhere. Why is that? Government minister admits that COVID restrictions are all about political power and control. So that's what it was all about. Digital ID. They're talking about digital ID. Bring it here. If they have digital ID, a digital currency, that's going to trap us. Bill C-8, you will be kicked off the internet and you will have no recourse. Carpe said, C-8, C-9 come through, we will no longer be free people. Now here's the other thing. If you think this is nonsense, red flag for the gun grab is your neighbors will be able to squeal on you and they will go to your house and take your guns. Don't have to tell you who told on you. You will not have due process. And you will have to go prove to them that you were not guilty. This is real. This is Canada. Listen to this. Bill C-9. So I'm asking a question. Why is our government passing these kind of laws? C-9 is a very dangerous bill. It uses the concept of naming a group. A political entity, the Order in Council, names a group a hate group, pursuant to 83.01. From there, the members of the group are all guilty by virtue of possession of the symbol. Mark Miller, the Liberal, in debate, names the Bible and Torah as hate and states there is no legitimate religious defense. It means the group is Christians or Jews, and because he said other religious texts, the Quran. This enables the government to target the religious individuals as part of the group. This is exceptionally evil, broad, and typical only of communist countries. So I want to read you this part, which I find is really interesting in why I have the other slide. There is an unlimited forfeiture clause. Is it your house, your bank account? Is it your life? You are the person by which the means of the offense was committed. This clause, ever written, this is what happens next. It says, it may, in addition to other punishment imposed, be ordered by the presiding provincial court judge or judge to be forfeited to His Majesty in right of the province in which that person is convicted or disposal, as the Attorney General may direct. What's that all about? This is Canada. And here we go. They're coming for our guns. The amnesty will be over in October. I explained to the Premier. I said to the Premier, at the end of it, so they're going to stop paying you for them in March, and then they're going to come for them in October. But if you don't give them up, you're going to become a criminal on that day. Our Premier says, oh no, we're not going to let them come to your house. We're going to tell the RCMP they can't enforce that. But what if you leave Alberta? So if you leave Alberta, they'll make you a criminal on day one. Okay, not even if you leave Alberta, they will know that you have these guns, the restricted guns, they're going to make you a criminal. Then the next thing they can do is you can't have a pal and be a criminal. So they're going to take your pal away. At that point, then they're absolutely able to go to your house and get all of your guns, even your non-restricted ones. And there's a 3-year jail penalty for that. And we've asked the Premier repeatedly, why do we not have Alberta gun laws? But they don't seem to want to do it. This is a 3-year battle. We've been fighting this battle for 3 years with them. We need an Alberta gun license. But they don't want to do it. So, just in case you didn't know, guns don't kill people. People kill people. Honduras, with a population of 8.2 million people, bans guns. Highest homicide rate in the world. Switzerland trains its 17, 18-year-olds to become soldiers and then sends them home with their automatic weapon. There's a fully automatic weapon in every house in Switzerland with a trained soldier that knows how to use it. And I think that's a great deal. And they have the lowest homicide rate in the world. So I just went over that with what the Premier said, so let's go here. She said that if you don't want to get shot, don't break into anybody's house, but yet she's not standing up for us to get our guns taken back, and I wish she would. But I'm going to give her some slack right now, so just so you know. We're here because she changed Bill 14. And I have not lost the sight of that. However, this gun stuff is very concerning to me because she's going to make a criminal out of 350,000 Albertans in one crack if we don't change that. So as good as this is, allow us to pursue this path that we're on, that has to be addressed. And the well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, and I fully believe that. All right, so let's check out what's going on with our economy. We grew 1.4% in 10 years. There's absolutely no way that they can do that unless they try. They have to try to do that. There's no way that you can do that in this country with everything we have to only grow our economy 1.4% in 10 years. And Mr. Trudeau, having done all that, gives the keys to Mr. Carney, the business genius. And $85 billion worth of investment left here because you know what? People are seeing it. They don't want to spend any money here because they don't see a business case for it. In his book, Mr. Carney says this: Western society is morally rotten, and that has been corrupted by capitalism, which has brought about a climate emergency. This, he claims, requires rigid controls on personal freedoms. More rigid controls on personal freedoms. C8, C9, he's showing us that. Assets will be stranded. What he ultimately wants is a technocratic dictatorship. So if we unpack that, a technocratic dictatorship is unelected big business running our country. And we talked about carbon tax already. So what happened? Since the business genius got into business, our economy shrank another 0.3% in October. And what does he do? Pumps $33 billion into bureaucracy. Again, another drain on us. These people do not produce anything. They're totally conscious of what they're doing. They're consciously crippling our economy and consciously hurting us. And he's got 103 ethics violations. Each one of those is a crime. Every one of those he should be impeached for. Every one. And I watched them flat out lie to a CBC reporter. A CBC reporter asked him if he had any business conflicts. He said, no. Basically, read my lips. No, I don't have any. And since he's been in Prime Minister, there's been 42 contracts. All have been with Brookfield. Imagine. And Canada pledges $4.3 billion to the Ukraine at the G7. 2 days later, Brookfield gets a contract for $4.3 billion to rebuild the Ukraine. True story. You can't even make that up. 12,500 dead from aid. We lead the world in assisted suicide. And what do? They take and sell the organs. These are the people that we're dealing with. $93 billion on UBI. I'll let Jeff get into that. So here's the problem. We don't have a CO2 problem. We've got a corruption problem. And there's no fixing this corruption problem. So here's the path. I saw Jim at the Prairie Rising conference, and he came, and he made a profound impact on me. His currency, his blood being currency, is something that really hit home with me. Because here we are. We have a path here, and our currency that we have to spend right now is our time. We don't have to get shot. We don't have to get shot at. We have to spend our time and work really hard at this, sign up to be a canvasser, and talk to your neighbors. That's the way this gets done. So I want you to be absolutely crystal clear here. Everybody says to me, Mitch, what about the soft middle? The soft middle in Calgary, these people. Well, I'm going to share something with you. There's only two sides to this. Either you're a globalist or you're with us. It's that simple. Everybody wants to play elbows up and use the hockey thing. And I played a little bit of hockey. I understand how that works. How it works is you have a bully running around the ice intimidating your players. And your players, because they're being intimidated, lose all their fine motor skills. So what's going to happen is they're going to come to you with all these fear-mongering things, and they're going to try to scare you and freeze you in one spot. It's going to take courage to get through this. So if you're in the hockey rink, and I can guarantee you I know about this, you decide if you're going to put up with that or you're going to stand up for your team and your teammates. So you go stand up beside that guy, and what do you say? Come on, let's go. And then you fight. Thank you very much. Okay.
Mitch Sylvester, ladies and gentlemen. What a guy. Now, if that was an appetizer, let's get ready for the main course. Our next guest very rarely needs an introduction. Jeff Rath, constitutional lawyer, legal counsel for Stay Free Alberta, board of directors at the AP Society. Jeff is a constitutional lawyer with 34 years experience. He's a leader and strong supporter of Alberta independence, being the only option for Alberta. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome super lawyer Jeff Rath.
Calgary, Alberta! Woo! I am so proud to be in Alberta tonight. Oh my God, look at all of you. Monday night in Calgary. This is fantastic. Thank you all for coming out. Before we get started tonight, I want to assure everybody, Sue is a real sign language interpreter, not a fake sign language interpreter like they had at Nelson Mandela's funeral. She's the real deal. We spent real money for this. It's awesome. Thank you, Sue. Appreciate you. Now, while we're on that subject, I want to thank all of the canvassers that were here today. Over 150 of your fellow Albertans got their canvassing badges, went through the canvassing training, and made sure that nobody had to stand out in the cold for more than 5 or 10 minutes. Right? We got through the lineup this morning, the 600 people that were lined up before we opened at 11. We got through that line in about 30 minutes because we could just run people through 150 people at a time. It was awesome this morning. So for Jason Kenney, who said we're just a bunch of malcontents sitting in a bar in Didsbury that couldn't organize a 2-car funeral procession, wake up. This is what Alberta looks like. You know, we fired you once. We don't need to hear it from you again, right? Now, the next thing I want to talk about tonight is how important, Mitch has already touched on it, how important it is for all of you to go to stayfreealberta.com, and if you can, if you got the time, and it doesn't take a lot of time, please register as a canvasser and get your canvassing badges. Because each and every one of you probably has 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 people in your circle that other people can't get to. They might not actually want to go out and find a signing location or go to an event. You've all got those people in your circle. You know, whether it's your mom or your dad or your grandparents in a lodge, you know, whether it's, you know, you're going to a family reunion, whatever it is, you know, we want to get to 1.8 million signatures, right? That would be more than the people who voted in the last election in Alberta. If we could get to that number, we wouldn't even have to have a referendum, right? So it's going to take all of us working together to get there, right? I was kind of laughing this morning. Our little friend, little Tommy the Commie Lukasik, right? Little Tommy, right? He was actually on Twitter today saying, oh, an Alberta independence referendum, it's inevitable now. It's inevitable. I mean, we're not even through the first quarter and that little weasel's already throwing in the towel, right? Way to go, Alberta. So, you know, all of this is moving forward exactly the way it should and exactly the way we always imagined it would, right? Albertans, notwithstanding anything they say from, you know, Quebec, oh, Alberta has no culture, right? We do have a culture. You know, we wake up in the morning, we work hard, we make money to take care of our kids, raise our families, take care of our parents, right? And live good, industrious lives. That is the culture of Alberta. And of course, you know, as Mitch was saying, and he just glossed over it because he knows I like to whine about this a little bit, but we all know that the Liberal Party and Mark Carney are an existential threat to the province of Alberta, right? You know, we talk about our Alberta culture. We talk about, you know, the fact that we have a culture that involves hard work, industriousness, working together as a people, right? And they want to destroy that culture. And their plan for destroying that culture, you know, is twofold. Mitch touched on, you know, the unchecked issuance of international mobility permits, temporary foreign worker visas, you know, student visas for people that never leave and they don't know where they are, right? Well, we have an over 9.5% unemployment rate in Alberta right now. Our youth unemployment is over 12.5%. Our Indigenous unemployment is over 24%. Does anybody here think we need any temporary foreign workers to take those jobs? Right? Does anybody here, you know, people that live in Calgary, we're waiting with bated breath, you know, for the next announcement of the summer water restrictions because Nenshi wouldn't maintain our water system, right? So we live in a city, right? Calgarians live in a city. Thankfully, I live in the country and I have a well. So, but anyway, but you know, Calgarians live in a city, right, where we don't have enough water. We don't have enough room in our classes for our kids. We don't have enough room in our emergency rooms, and people are literally dying in our ERs because they can't get proper service. And it's because our schools, you know, and our ERs, our water system, our power system, everything, all of our infrastructure is being completely overrun by all these temporary foreign workers, international mobility program workers, and the rest that Carney is intentionally flooding Alberta with, right? How many people voted for that, right? So one of the things that, you know, we need to keep in mind is there is a solid future, and I don't want to spend the entire evening, you know, bitching about Mark Carney because it's an easy thing to do, but I do want to finish off on the thought of, you know, what the Liberals are doing or planning to do to destroy our culture. Mitch touched on universal basic income. How many people here know what that means? Right? A few, okay? So universal basic income is a plan by the Liberals, right, to destroy our children, okay? So first thing they want to do is, along with the universal basic income bill, they want to bring in a bill to lower the voting age in Canada to 16, okay? The reason they want to lower the voting age to 16 is so that our 17-year-old kids can vote on a bill called Universal Basic Income, right, that will allow them to drop out of school at the age of 17 and be given $2,000 a month to stay home and not work, not go to school, not have a plan to go to school, have a plan to go to work, just stay home, smoke government legalized marijuana and play video games, and they'll be paid $2,000 a month. Right? How many people here raise their kids to live like that? Right? No one, right? That is a direct attack on our culture. It's a direct attack on our children, and we will not stand for it. And of course, the easiest way to stop all of this is for all of us to keep doing what we're doing, coming out to events like this, getting our canvassing badges, getting our fellow Albertans to sign what people are calling the Alberta Declaration of Independence petition, right? And doing all of that to vote ourselves the hell out of Canada. And of course, the reason we're doing that, and I see lots of parents here with their kids tonight, and I just love it, right? I want to shout out to the two beautiful kids in the front row today with their family, and all the other parents that have brought their children out today to witness their parents signing the Alberta independence petition. There are lots of kids and lots of families here today. That's what this movement is all about, right? We want a future for our children. We want our kids to be able to move out of mom and dad's basement and afford a home, right? We want our kids to be able to afford rent, right? When rents, because of the fact that we've been flooded with all of these the federal government subsidized foreign workers, international mobility program workers, and the rest of it, incidentally, all of whom are given more money than our senior citizens and our veterans, right? Taking apartments, driving up rents, making life in general miserable, because that's how Mark Carney and the globalists want us to live, right? They don't live that way. They fly around in their private jets. They meet in Davos. They all talk about how, we're basically a bunch of sheep that need to be herded and taken care of, according to them, right? Don't eat meat. Oh no, cows fart too much, right? Can't have beef anymore. While we're on that subject, think about the fact that the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, the same group that murdered all the ostriches in British Columbia, right, now want Alberta farmers and ranchers to have birth certificates for every calf born in Alberta, right? So when they come and seize your farm or seize your ranch, they know exactly how many animals that you have, so you can't hide them from them. So if they want to seize your herd and murder your herd like they did to the ostriches, they've got it all accounted for. Like, what do we say to that? I say, hell no. And again, this is why we say that that Mark Carney and his government are an existential threat to the province of Alberta. Every time we turn around, they find some new way to make our lives miserable, right? Whether it's the West Coast tanker ban, whether it's, the emission caps, the production cap, the guns, the firearms seizures, needless firearm seizures. There's no more law-abiding people in this country than licensed RPAL holders, right? The very fact that we've all been forced into becoming custodians of our own property for Justin Trudeau for the last 3 years, without a single crime anywhere in Canada being committed by an RPAL holder in any of their seized firearms, indicates to you how safe and law-abiding every RPAL holder in this province is, right? And again, we have Danielle Smith refusing to issue us. Oh, hang on. Is CSIS in the house? Are they trying to make us clear out of the room or what? Somebody pulled the fire alarm. Well, I think we're safe to do that. But anyway, that's what we are dealing with on an ongoing basis, right? We need Danielle Smith to pay attention. We need her to issue firearms licenses in Alberta. And above all, stop talking like a globalist. Every time she says, strong Alberta within a united Canada, that's globalist speak for the fact that we're going to keep Alberta under Carney and Communist China's thumb, right? Let's keep in mind that that's what it's all about. Every time she says net zero, that's globalist speak for, you can be taxed to death for producing resources, for working, for driving to work, for producing food on your farms, for trying to go to work to take care of your children. That's what that's all about. If you ever hear any politician pay lip service to the words net zero, here's a big spoiler alert. They're a globalist, and you need to tell them they need to turn their brain around or we're not going to vote for them. It's that simple. Right? And what have we seen in the last couple of weeks? And it was kind of funny. CTV was here earlier. I don't know if they're still here right now. but I did it. I wasted half an hour of my life, I think yesterday or today, talking to them about what we're doing and why and how. They took a 10-second clip of what I was saying. But the most important thing I said to them was at the very outset, and you can see the reporter was kind of discombobulated. She goes, well, Mr. Rath, what do you think that, is going on in the independence movement? And I said, well, before we even get into this, I said, this is a national news program. So I want to send a big shout out to Mark Carney because he is the best salesman that Alberta independence has ever had. Right? Every time he opens his little mealy mouth, he drives another 100,000 or more Albertans to our banner, right? Let's just look at the last week. And Mitch has already showed you the clip of, Mark Carney. I was actually joking that with friends that, he looked like he was on scopolamine when he said, New World Order, right? But, the next day, I don't think he was on drugs, maybe whatever. But the next day, a reporter asked him what he meant when he said New World Order. All right. Well, right. So for whoever the forever. So for whoever the All right. All right. Wow. This reminds me of my mother-in-law. I can't get a word in edgewise. All right. All right, there we go. So I just want to say, for whoever the little forever Canadian or NDPer was that pulled the fire alarm, we know who you are. Yeah, we see you. Yeah. So anyway, I kind of lost my train of thought there. But anyway, speaking of which, I was laughing with somebody today. This will get me back on track. But I heard Nenshi had a hysterical hissy fit news conference today, all about everything we're doing and what bad people we are. Right? How many people here think we're bad people? Right? How many people here would ever vote for Naheed Nenshi? Right? Yeah, that's what we're dealing with. So I said to a friend of mine today, they said, oh, did you see Nenshi's speech today? And I said, why would I waste my time doing that? Like, why would I want to hear anything that moron has to say, first of all? And then second of all, just to be clear, right? If Naheed Nenshi says Alberta independence is a bad idea, that is the best endorsement we have that it is a fantastic idea. Right? Okay, so that little Nenshi interlude and fire alarm interlude's over. I think my brain's now back on track to where I was. So what I was talking about was Mark Carney and his whole New World Order speech in China. I'm surprised he didn't give his little Illuminati symbol hands thing when he was in China as well, right? Got to do that. Got to let the Illuminati know you're on side, right? But anyway, the next day, his reporter asks him, because he had a great 3 days. So the next day, he comes out, and the reporter asks him, what did you mean when you meant New World Order? And then he goes through a whole bunch of typical word salad that comes out of the mouth of a liberal. And then he says, well, what I really meant by that is bilateral relations, like between like-minded countries. So I went, wow. So Mark Carney, Prime Minister of Canada, says that Canada and the Canadian government is like-minded to the communist dictatorship of communist China. Thank you for confirming everything that we have already thought, right? And then the next day, so of course, my friend Keith Wilson has a great line about Carney. And he says, yeah, he doesn't even live in Canada. He just visits from time to time for a day or two, and then he jets off somewhere else, right? So anyway, when Carney was visiting Canada the day after clarifying that by New World Order, he meant that we were like-minded to the communist dictatorship in communist China. So the next day he comes home and then decides it's a good idea to invoke Article 5 of the NATO treaty with regard to our friends in the United States of America, right? Well, for those of you that aren't familiar with what Article 5 of the NATO treaty is, that's the provision of the treaty that requires members of NATO to militarily come to the defense of any NATO country that's attacked. So Carney's not even home for 24 hours after visiting his communist masters in Beijing, right? And he's threatening war with the United States of America under Article 5 of the NATO treaty. I'm 61 years old, right? I studied foreign policy, Canadian history, when I was doing my honors degree in political science at the University of Alberta. I'm very familiar with the history of Canada, and I have lived experience of 61 years on this planet. At no point in my life or in anywhere in a Canadian history book that I'm familiar with has a Canadian Prime Minister ever threatened war with the United States of America, right? Think about how asinine that is, right? Mark Carney is literally like a mouse nibbling on an elephant's toenail, and, he thinks that he just has to say elbows up and Donald Trump is going to roll over and, Mark Carney's going to get everything that he wants. It's completely asinine. But I guess it plays with the voters in Ontario. It may play with the voters in Quebec, but I suspect with our friend Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon getting elected in Quebec, the liberal days in Quebec may be coming to an end, right? But Mark Carney is literally that big of a buffoon, right? Then he goes to the World Economic Forum. He's had a great 4 days or 5 days, right? Goes to the World Economic Forum and again goes out of his way to be gratuitously insulting and rude and all the rest of it to Canada's largest trading partner, right? We literally have hundreds of billions of dollars in trade at risk with the United States of America. As Mitch indicated, almost 90% of all Alberta trade is north-south, not east-west, right? But there's Mark Carney gratuitously insulting the president of the United States without mentioning him by name. And of course, President Trump's reaction the next day was great. He came out to the stage in Davos, literally pantsed Mark Carney, gave him a bare-bottom spanking in front of the entire world, completely humiliated Mark Carney, right? The only thing that Trump didn't do to Carney was drag him off to the washroom and give him a swirly, right? And this is the Prime Minister of Canada, right? Then, I'm doing interviews, the other day, and I'm talking about this with a reporter, and they said, well, but didn't you hear? Mark Carney came out the other day and says he cares about national unity. I said, wow. Does he care about national unity? That's great. Because it's like he hasn't repealed the West Coast tanker ban. He hasn't repealed the carbon emissions cap. He hasn't repealed the production cap. He hasn't stopped talking about how the federal government is going to enforce net zero on the Alberta power grid. He hasn't stopped talking about criminalizing, hundreds of thousands of Albertans if they don't turn in their property, which is subject to Section 9213 of the BNA Act, which is exclusive jurisdiction over property and civil rights in the province, but he still thinks he can just come in and seize our property under the criminal law power, right? So he's doing that, right? And then on top of it, and Mitch alluded to it, the ink wasn't even dry, right, on that so-called pipe dream MOU that Danielle signed, right? And Mark Carney was bragging about a 600% increase in the industrial carbon tax in Alberta, right? Yet he and Danielle are going, oh, this is going to bring business to Alberta. Well, wait a minute, right? So 600% increase of a $90 industrial carbon tax. So $540 a ton is what they want to tax carbon with in Alberta, right? It's $30 in Quebec, by the way, right? And somehow or other, this is a good deal, and we should all be jumping up and down for joy that Mark Carney got such a great deal by getting Danielle to concede a 600% carbon tax increase. So when this reporter says, well, Jeff, Mark Carney says that he wants to, Canada to be united and he cares about unity, my response is, then tell him to stop lacing up his hobnailed boots and trying to kick us all to death with his stupid policies. But again, we know that he won't do that, which, and again, God bless him, because he is the best salesman for Alberta independence that we could ever have. The other thing that I'd like everybody to consider, and again, I promise not to just be negative all night tonight, is how much better off we are going to be in a free and independent Alberta, right? I want everybody to contemplate for a minute the $70 billion a year that Albertans send to Ottawa in the form of federal taxes, CPP, and UI. That's right, $70 billion a year leave this province not to come back. 15 billion to Quebec. Oh, that big have-not province of Ontario, 500 million, $500 million to Ontario, the Maritimes, and then all the other waste, right? So Trudeau's electric choo-choo train from Toronto to Montreal. Carney wants to spend $200 billion to rearm Europe, right? What about the $69 billion that the Liberals have sent to Ukraine, right? I read the other day that Ukraine has $22 billion in gold reserves, right? Wow, isn't that nice? We're generous people. Albertans have sent billions of dollars to Ukraine so that they can maintain $22 billion in gold reserves that they haven't had to tap into, because all of us generous Albertans are taking money out of our back pockets and letting Mark Carney send it wherever he wants in the world. And again, think about what Mitch said earlier. We all know that Ukraine and the Ukrainian government is one of the most notoriously corrupt governments in the world. Zelensky has yachts, castles, ski resorts. I mean, Christian Freeland had to quit her job in Parliament as a Liberal to go over and help Zelensky hide all of his money, right? So how many of us here actually think that when billions of dollars are being sent to the Ukraine, right, that it's not being laundered back into the offshore bank accounts of of members of the Liberal Party, friends of the Liberal Party, members of the Liberal cabinet, et cetera, et cetera? I sure don't, right? It's all of these programs, Trudeau's gender programs in the third world, all of the money that gets shipped overseas, it goes into a black box with no accountability, and none of us know where this money is going, other than we know it's not staying in Alberta to take care of Albertans. And I say that it's time for all of that to stop, right? And we have a really easy and clear way forward here. All we have to do is keep doing what we did today. We have to volunteer our time. We have to, and it was fun. I mean, I spent an hour down there this afternoon in between getting some other things done today. And I mean, the energy and the excitement and the chatter and everybody making new friends and all of the volunteers and all the canvassers working together. I mean, it's such a great vibe. It's like tonight. It's this whole event tonight. People making new friends, Albertans working together. All we need to do is keep doing that until the 6th of May, right? And we get our 1.8 million signatures, and we get Alberta the hell out of Canada. Now, Mitch has addressed this earlier, and I do want to speak to a little bit because it's something that comes up with the reporters all the time. We are not pursuing statehood with the United States of America, right? We are, however, meeting with them on a regular basis because I think it's important for us to be able to come back and tell our fellow Albertans what the attitude is of our most important trading partner when it comes to Alberta independence, right? I mean, let's face it, this entire project would be dead if the United States government told us, look, you guys are whistling in the dark. And, the fact of the matter is we're not going to support Alberta independence. If you guys try to leave Canada, we won't support it. We'll shut down the border. We won't buy your oil anymore. We're not going to buy your beef. You guys can just behave yourselves, and, because we're globalists like Carney and, we think you should just shut up and behave. No, but that's not what they're saying. They have told us directly that they are enthusiastic about the prospect of Alberta independence, right? And do you know why they're enthusiastic about the prospect of Alberta independence? It's because they know. I mean, you see the picture that Mitch put up of the 11 faceless MPs that are communist Chinese agents. We're not allowed to know who they are. I mean, it's obvious from New World Order. Mark Carney's a Chinese agent. There's no doubt about it, right? He's the prime minister, and he's governing this country for Brookfield and for China, right? He's not governing it, demonstrably not governing it for Canada or Alberta, right? So, you know, within the U.S. national interest and their new strategic, the new document that they released on U.S. strategic policy, right? They recognize that, you know, that the Alberta oil field, right, needs to be liberated from control by communist China, right? And that means liberating the Alberta oil field from control by the Carney Liberals, because the Carney Liberals are controlled by communist China, right? It's pretty straightforward. The other thing that's really remarkable, and I don't know if any of you saw it, but, you know, just 2 or 3 days ago, Scott Bessent, the U.S. Treasury Secretary, who arguably is the second most powerful man in the world, right, announced that he would welcome an Alberta pipeline down through the United States to the Pacific Northwest to service the markets of Korea, Japan, etc., in a heartbeat, right? You know, now that we've opened the door for Danielle, hopefully she's sending a delegation down to Washington immediately to follow up the work we've been doing to get that done. You know, it's humiliating to Albertans to have to go to, on bended knee to a socialist government in British Columbia and beg them permission for a pipeline, right? And I mean, just a little thought for everybody to think about, because that is one of the big, you know, the big things that the forever communists say, and all the, you know, all the CBC people say, well, if Alberta became independent, you'd be landlocked. It's like, we're landlocked now, right? Completely landlocked, right? But if Alberta were an independent country, even dealing with British Columbia would be so much easier. It's like, okay, BC, you don't want a pipeline through British Columbia. Carney says you have a veto. Okay, well, let's talk about that, right? New independent government of Alberta, country of Alberta. We're really concerned about keeping British Columbia rats out of the province of Alberta, right? And because we're a rat-free province, right, we are going to stop every train and every truck coming out of Vancouver, coming out of British Columbia at the Alberta border, right? And we're going to inspect it for BC rats. You know, any rat carrying an NDP card will be sent right back to Vancouver, right? But, you know, and I'm saying that facetiously, obviously. It's not a realistic scenario, because we would say we could do that, or you could give us a pipeline. I mean, how hard would that be, right? You know, and that's the reality of it. As an independent country, Alberta would be able to negotiate from a position of strength with British Columbia to get a pipeline through BC. And the Americans have already said that they would be enthusiastically in support of an Alberta pipeline going to, going to the Pacific Northwest, right? And, you know, these are honorable people. I take them at their word. You know, the other thing is we could also have a pipeline straight down to the Gulf of America, right? But more importantly, as an independent country, you know, we would get rid of all of the federal regulations choking our oil industry, right? We would get rid of all of, you know, the NDP regulations brought in by the Notley government choking our industry, right? We would be able to double oil production in this province within 5 years, right? By having people that work in the oil industry who understand how the industry works, you know, help get rid of all of the regulations that are making oil and gas projects in this province, you know, year-long affairs to get done, right? We don't need any of that in Alberta, right? And we just need to come up with smarter ways to work to make Alberta the richest, most prosperous, least taxed, and least regulated jurisdiction in North America. You know, and that is how we are going to take care of our kids, right? All of that's going to be possible. Alberta will control its own immigration. There's a document that I was involved in drafting with a bunch of economists and people smarter than me, bankers, you know, et cetera, you know, where we talked about, you know, what the fiscal plan for a future of Alberta would look like, right? In that document, we talk about the things that Alberta would pay for, like, you know, our immigration department. And we make it clear that it's our immigration and deportation department, right? And, you know, after funding everything that the federal government funds currently for us, including tripling the amount of money spent on Indigenous communities to lift them out of the abject poverty that Carney and Trudeau have left them in, we still have communities in this province that don't have safe drinking water. That's an embarrassment to me as an Albertan. It's despicable, right? All of that can be fixed. And then after that, we would still have a $37 to $57 billion a year fiscal capacity surplus. Think about that. And that's where all the tax savings and tax cuts would come from, because a government of an independent Alberta would believe that money needs to be left in our pockets and not held by bureaucrats in Edmonton to spend as they please on ridiculous World Economic Forum projects. We could literally, constitutionally limit government spending, go to real currency, no more fiat currency, where a bank governor like Carney can double the money supply and literally steal 50% of the money in your bank account, steal 50% of the equity of your home just by doubling the money supply and inflating, your money into meaninglessness. Think about it. When you go to the grocery store, right, and you see that grocery prices in the last 5-10 years have more than doubled, right? It's not the groceries are more expensive. Your money's worth half as much, right? Thank you, Mr. Carney. That will not happen in a free and independent Alberta. And again, there are so many benefits to Alberta getting out of Canada. And I put this challenge out to Danielle Smith more than once. And my challenge for any of them, the forever communists, little Tommy the commie, all of them, I want, instead of talking about all your fear and BS about, oh, well, think about this and think about that, and you don't love Canada, and you're a traitor, and you're this and you're that. No, stop with all of that nonsense. Give us one good reason that Albertans will be better off if they stayed in Canada. Just one. They can't do it. They can't do it, because the reality is we have thousands of good reasons for leaving, right? They don't have one good reason for any of us to stay anymore. Not one. So that's, what I'd like all of you to reflect on. And when you're talking to your friends and neighbors, I want all of you to get your canvassing badges and you're out getting signatures. If somebody asks you that question, just ask them that question, right? Can you think of one reason that Alberta would be better off if we stayed in Canada? You're still going to be Canadian citizens. You're still going to have your Canadian passport if you want to keep it. On top of it, right, all this nonsense about, you're going to lose your pension. You're not going to lose your pension. Pensions are contractual obligation. OAS, we're going to have so much money in a free and independent Alberta. We are going to be able to take care of our seniors, take care of our veterans, take care of our pensioners, right? Double the amount that they're getting paid, right? And still not have to pay any federal or any income tax. So think about that. So I've actually gone on a lot longer than I usually do. This is a hell of a captive audience. Thank you very much. So anyway, I just wanted to thank all of you tonight for coming out. I want to tell all of you how proud I am to be an Albertan tonight, how proud I am of each and every one of you. And I want to say thank you, Calgary, for showing Alberta that we can turn out and vote ourselves to freedom. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Jeff Rath, ladies and gentlemen. Before we continue, folks, I got to make sure to give one last thank you tonight to everyone who dug deep into their pockets and donated to stayfreealberta.com or Stay Free Alberta. Don't forget, over to the corner again, for anybody who came late, there is a table accepting donations up to $50. Anything higher, please ask. They'll arrange what can work for you. Don't forget, there's merch at the back as well as lawn signs if you want to make sure to lawn signs if you want to let people know that you're voting for independence. Signatures, I've been told signatures are going until 10 o'clock, folks. So if you haven't yet got signatures in for the petition, make sure to head downstairs. You've got until 10 o'clock to get that done. Join me. There will be no Q&A tonight, but join me on Unacceptable Fringe on YouTube. Jeff Rath and Mitch Sylvester will be joining me on a series of live stream events where you can come and ask your questions. You will be heard. we'll make sure no one enters this without their questions answered. So if you want your questions answered, again, you can see the page here. Head over to Unacceptable Fringe on YouTube. They will take a look at that. Has anybody lost a black Ridge wallet here with a brown front? This was found on the floor. If anybody has lost this, head over to the doors over here where the green room is. We'll make sure it's left in there for you to pick up after the event. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank each and every one of you who came out tonight. I want to thank each and every one of you for your support. And playing us out tonight, a new Alberta Independence anthem called Alberta Unleashed from Dave McKenzie. Thank you, everybody. Drive safe. Have a great night.
So we have 5,500 people watching online, which is excellent. So thanks for coming.
Yes.